Okay, so I think we can start by each speaker introducing himself and why he thinks he's a good name when discussing security.
Hi, I'm Andrew from Mystic. I've been to this conference for 11 years in a row now.
Some applause for Andrew, please.
And I've been coding since I was about this big. And when I was 6, I was coding more secure than most of you are. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I've been coding in all kinds of languages. And yeah, I think most companies need to have secure coding. So I think my experience for the last 20 years as a consultant helps with that. So,
thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, just to mention that we developing Internet of Things, and particularly I developed it more than 20 years. And in the last year, Internet of Things in most cases is Internet of Unsecure Things. You found lots of vulnerabilities almost everywhere. From time to time, even you just hack a car and remotely control it, stuff like that. I'm deeply involved with the Bosch stuff. Also, we have a secure engineering process, often use the penetration testing, have some training and certification in ethical hacking and data privacy.
Thank you, Pavlin.
Hi, my name is Yannis Kolaxis. I come from Athens, Greece, where I work for Atos. We have a software house of 300 software engineers, where we develop software products, software applications, mostly Java stack based. And software quality and security are our top priorities. So we have some practices that we put in place in order to ensure that our applications are secure, and this is what we're going to discuss here.
Thank you.
My name is Ahmad Gohar. I'm working for IBM Egypt. From security perspective, I think it is the main topics that I hate first. Maybe I changed my mind 3 years back when I started to go to a blockchain environment and get a new vision of a security from another point of view, not from like an encryption and that stuff. That's usually the security architect to close all the facilities that we have. So it's have another way of thinking about security.
Hi everyone, my name is Luis Weir. I work for Oracle, actually the hospitality division. My day-to-day is building a new cloud-native product for hospitality. In terms of security, well, my background is APIs and microservices. I've been doing a lot of work on APIs, written a few books on it. And APIs have become if you may, the doors for modern applications. So you really must secure those doors. So that's where I look at security from that point of view. How can you create APIs that are not exposed to security threats, such as you don't get unwanted access to them and therefore compromise your data. So that's where I come from.
Thank you, everyone, for the introduction. So let's start with something simple. Can each speaker give a few, let's say, best 3 tips for writing secure code? But we should rotate so that one doesn't exhaust all the good tips and then the others are wondering what to say. Andrew, you can start.
don't write any code at all.
I still remember one colleague when, after one education, he said, we post too many risks on Bosch, so just stopping working. But at the end, we need to write a code, and this is our profession. I remember one of my last CV that I post was just a very simple function, get file, return file. But it was accessible using REST, and you can go to the whole Linux system. Be careful regarding permissions.
Ioannis?
Okay, one of the main principles is to treat our code as if it were open source code, as if everyone had access to our source code. So we should never have passwords, for example, or configuration settings in our source code. Everything should be externalized, all the configuration. This is one main principle that we always try to apply. And the second part is having tools in your day-to-day work, such as static source code analysis that checks your code for bad coding practices, for security vulnerabilities, and also scanning all the third-party libraries that you use in your applications for potential vulnerabilities. Nowadays, we leverage, we take advantage of all the freely available open source applications that are out there and consider them as secure. But this is not always the case. That's why we need to use tools that scan all the dependencies that our application has for potential vulnerabilities and make sure to always update them.
Thank you.
The complete security, it's like, it's a nightmare. Hoping it's a dream, maybe it's an unachievable dream. And if you think that your application is secured, then your security radar is switched off. And usually we close the pitfall that we introduced from our code or from our infrastructure and that stuff.
Yeah, before I answer the question, I just want to ask a question to the audience. Raise your hand if you know how to do a penetration testing attack, or an XML bomb, or a denial of service attack. A few of you, okay, don't get close to my laptop, please. Anyways, I think it's important to get familiarized with these threats, because a lot of the time we can ourselves secure our code by simply understanding the nature of these attacks, and sometimes we don't, right? So if you go to the OWASP.10 project, for example, you get lots of information on, session hijacking or common attacks, right? But also how to look at it from a code perspective. Don't just rely on your code scanners, on your SonarQubes or X-rays, right, to fix the code for you. Sometimes it's not that obvious, so I think we all need to get a bit more familiarized with this type of threats, and when we're coding, basically code against them, because we're already familiar with them. That would be my tip.
Thank you. Andrew, you want to add something other than don't write any code? This is for another conference, maybe?
No, so every line of code you write is going to be a vector of attack. I think several of the speakers already said this, but anytime you think your code is secure, you're completely wrong. The script kiddie to the more professional nation states or teams of coders, hackers, if you will, are going to get into your code. It doesn't matter what you do. I don't care. But actually, the most insecure thing running on your systems today is anybody that has actual access. So social engineering is where most things happen. Companies now have these systems that email you after somebody has sent a phishing expedition to all of their customers, and they usually find that 30 or 40% of these people actually click on the links. If you think about that, you have to write your code to make sure that the people in your organization aren't the ones that you're giving access to. That, secure code or not, try to get around the human problem.
Thank you, Andrew. Now everybody is scared to write a line of code. So in the recent times, there have been advent of new languages, popular languages, that tout themselves as being more secure than the established languages. For example, Rust and Swift and Go tout to be more secure than, say, C, C++, and Java. Do you have any observations on that? Like, should we rewrite our code in these new languages to make it more secure, or is it just a fad?
I'm sure Rust and Swift and Go are all very secure, but just like you can write really secure code in Java, and you can write the best C code possible, the most secure C code possible, I'm sure you could write Rust code that anybody can hack into. So I think it depends on practices of the coder itself. If you're putting passwords in your Rust code, then you've already lost.
Probably I will repeat something, but for me, most important is the people in front of the computer, not the programming language. Also, security cannot be added afterwards. When you design the code, when you think about the models, you need to implement security inside.
Yeah, I also believe that it's not a matter of choosing the right or wrong language. It's all a matter of the processes that you've put in place. Do you have code reviews? Do you apply them? If you don't have code reviews, then chances are that your code may be insecure. Do you have static source code analysis? Do you check your dependencies for vulnerabilities? If you have all these processes, then chances are that no matter what language you choose, your application will be secure.
Thank you.
Even I am biased to Java, but I think it's, as I agreed with them, that it's a matter of the maturity of the code itself and also the popularity of the programming language itself also. So if like have a matured programming language and have like 1 million application, it will be hacked less than the Java or C++ application that's maybe 1 billion application or something like that.
Or probably write the application in COBOL. No one knows COBOL anymore.
So they cannot hack it?
Exactly. Anyways, I agree with what everyone said earlier. I don't think it's the language really. I think it's the skills of the developer, but also the life cycle that you follow when you're developing software. If you're the best coder in the world and you don't have a proper pipeline and you're not doing penetration testing, then it's impossible to assume that you're going to protect against all the threats. So, yeah.
Okay.
So just one last point. I know that I'm the one that started to talk about the coder is the problem, and it's actually 100% true. But also, I think some of these other languages make it easier for you not to screw up. I'm not saying that you can't, because you can, but it institutes things, because I've been coding for a very long time. So, any new language that comes along, the new ideas, making sure that your code is immutable in certain ways. All these things are good things to think about, and I think some of the newer languages probably enforce some of those things, so it's harder to screw it up. But you definitely can. Don't take it as a challenge, folks.
I would like to add to your point. I think it's also a point in time thing, right? You can write code today, but it's not going to be secure 2 years down the line or even 6 months down the line, right? So it's important to keep revisiting your code, and even GitHub now, I noticed that they are flagging, right? If your code has a new vulnerability, right? So long that you're on top of your code and diligent, there are so many tools that can really help you do a good job.
That GitHub thing is really wonderful. Raise your hand if you've gotten any code emails from GitHub saying that your code had some vulnerabilities in it. Oh, come on. You guys have the notifications turned off. That's the only reason.
Really, one of my team told me that we need not to upload our code over GitHub because it's used to notify us with its vulnerability issue, and we need to solve that vulnerability issue by don't upload it to GitHub. So
So let's...
Can I say one, just not really example, but as a part of our software development process, we have required penetration testing. And this is the stuff that people really want to delay because they need to fix the bugs. And sometimes, how to say, security bugs are very hard to fix it.
So continuing on Pavlin's point, can you suggest some good resources for novice developers to get started writing secure code? Like pointers to resources, not tricks themselves.
I already said it, but I would really recommend that you go to OWASP Top 10. I always go back to it, even though I've read it like 100 times. It's really useful to understand web threats, or common web threats.
Upload all your code to GitHub, I guess.
And see what the others are going to find as bugs?
There is also Java security coding guidelines, even the scanners that check against the Java secure code guidelines. Also, it's an advertisement, but we use Sonatype IQ that directly check to the stuff similar to the GitHub. I mean, for the vulnerability of third-party libraries. There is a lots of tools, even the free tools, that you can really use. And in most cases, they point to top 10 vulnerabilities, stuff like that. Just think when you write the code. It is not just functionality. It is also security. It is also some stuff related to the non-functional testing and so on.
I got one. Take your code, put it on a laptop, and attend Black Hat conference in Las Vegas, and see what happens. Do you guys know what the Black Hat conference is in Las Vegas? Essentially, if you have a laptop, you better make sure it doesn't have anything on it that's important because they will hack it. Everybody, if you ever get on a network, you thought Wi-Fi open networks here were unsecure or anywhere else are unsecure. There, you should have your laptop wrapped in tin foil just to make sure that it doesn't get hacked. Don't actually do that because tin foil is not going to work. But
So this
mostly a joke, but I think it would work.
Another tip from Andrew about security: don't go to Black Hat. Okay, so we have also the big topic, which is in the recent years, more and more of these IoT devices. We've heard them being hacked. We've heard of them being made into botnets. We've heard of them being used to film our living rooms and streaming them to Russian websites. Like, is there any good ending to all of this madness?
No, God, no. Anytime when these devices are coming out on the market, most of them don't have firewalls on them. Most of them have open ports. It's basically an invitation for hackers to go after them, and obviously that's what we've seen. And if you're writing code for these things, it's super important for you to make sure that what you're doing is done over secure channels, and you're not sending clear text anything, because it will be seen. Because if you thought corporations were security nightmares, consumers are so much worse. How many people have family members who don't use something like 1Password or LastPass? Everybody uses LastPass and 1Password? Or do they use the same password a bunch of times? Or they use password. And they think it's secure because they use an exclamation point and some numbers after it. So all I'm saying is you have to, the lowest common denominator is what you should code toward, I think, with an IoT device.
Okay.
I want to say that in IoT devices, in some cases, security costs. There is lots of sensors that use the batteries, and in most cases, these sensors work for 3 to 5 years. If you put very simple security like TLS or stuff like that, the battery will drain in 1 month. Sometimes you need to think about how to prevent the stuff with, how to say, the plain text messages. Cannot be done for sure, but you need, how to say, to add enough time redundancy in order to achieve security in other ways. It is not just high encryption, because today encryption, after 5 years, maybe everyone can block it. This was mentioned in the beginning. The application that we write are secure now. It is best possible now, not after the 5 years.
Somebody else want to add something? Okay. I think one of the big questions with IoT is what happens when the device goes end of life. Because let's say you bought something that's smart, and after 2 years, the one way it's going to end is your device becomes unsecure because they stop patching it. Another way, the manufacturer can break the device so that it's no longer works, so that you don't use it and you're not vulnerable. Like, is there any third option or maybe a preferred way to deal with all of those devices which in 2-3 years are going to be obsolete?
Well, so I've seen a lot of new companies come on the market now, and one of the things, there's secure routers. And these things are blocking, using ad blockers on your network right away. A lot of them are blocking things so that things can't get in. So it's not the Linksys router that we all know and love. So how to deal with that? I think I think it's an opportunity, really. I think most companies need to support their devices, well, for as long as their device is going to last. I don't think it's, honestly, personally, I don't think it's fair for them to end a life of product that a consumer is going to want to say, well, I bought it for $100. It should last me for 4 years. If the battery doesn't last, that's one thing. But if the warranty says it's going to last for 4 years, it better last for 4 years. And after that, give me an upgrade path. Give me a way to get a new product. Bring me online to something higher. Or I think Apple does a wonderful job of making sure everybody has the latest iOS. And they've done it by annoying the hell out of all of us. Have you not upgraded to iOS 13 yet? What about now? What about now? You want to do it tonight? Remind me later. Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. Because Apple knows that most consumers are not as smart as all of you out here. All of you have the latest and greatest of all of your OSs, right? You've patched everything. You don't use old software, right? So we're not immune, none of us are, and we all have older versions of dependencies. Who runs Node.js anything here? Who can, without some of these static code analysis tools and dependency things, who could ever figure out which one of the 400,000 dependencies that you need to run a simple app? You'll have to upgrade. So I think battery concerns are a big issue, which is probably why Node.js doesn't run on any of these IoT devices, right? Because who could? But so I think it depends on the warranty, but I think there's an opportunity here, and I think Iskren just opened it up for all of you to figure out how to scan somebody's home wireless network and then give them options of upgrading all of their devices and letting them know what warranty is left on the devices that they have. If nobody does this, I'm going to get my 13-year-old to start coding this. Let's get it done, guys.
Thank you, Andrew.
Maybe just to add something regarding the end of life. People usually don't like how to say end of life of the device, but some things it is a real prevention.
I don't like end of life ever.
Probably every one of you have old smartphones with lots of personal information undeleted. Also, lots of information can be found regarding the behavior of the people, even from the simple sensor and stuff like that. Currently, I think nobody cares regarding after throwing the device what exactly is inside. Maybe one good point. 1 million GDPR penalty to Deseka Bank because of hard disk that was thrown away, and someone found and give it to the Commission of Privacy Data. This cost 1 million, just for one throw hard drive with bank data.
And there could be a Bitcoin in there, too.
Probably. Bitcoin wallet on smart watch or smart phone. That's.
Yeah. No, I have a friend who works for a company in the Bay Area, and he has 18 Bitcoin. And this was back when it was up to $19,000 US. And he can't remember the password. Can you imagine? It's so secure, nobody will ever see that Bitcoin ever again. It's so sad.
Any words from the rest of the speakers? Closing words?
Yeah, regarding IoT devices, it's not only encryption. We also need to give careful consideration to what data we store and what data we transmit. And if we can, we shouldn't transmit all the private data. Maybe we can somehow consolidate them or accumulate them so we don't disclose sensitive data when transmitting them. So there are more practices that we can apply besides encryption, and that is carefully designing what data gets transmitted.
Yes, a small part to add, it's that we need to differentiate between the securing data at rest and securing data at transient when we are transmitting data from device to device or from the IoT device to like the MQ or whatever the queuing systems that's firing, or sometimes the blockchain network itself. So we need to think about in both dimensions, the rest and the transition period.
I think everyone said everything. So.
Well, somebody brought up a really good point too, because all of these devices that we now have are starting to get gobbled up by, I think they're called FAANG from the investment community, Facebook, Apple, and all the other ones, Google. I have a Fitbit now, and I want to sell it because Google now owns Fitbit. And it's not, I'm a bit of a privacy person. You know, come see my talk tomorrow at 1:30. But you know, the other issue with these IoT devices is we're willingly submitting a ton of private information because all of us have to be the biggest detectives in the world to figure out what they're actually sending. You know, probably everybody in this room is convinced that their phone or the Alexa device that their grandparents bought them because they didn't know any better is probably listening to them, and that's why they got that ad on Instagram or Facebook for whatever you got the ad for. We don't have to talk about that.
Can I add just something regarding the privacy topic? Currently, it is on a radar. GDPR in Europe, California Privacy Act starting from 1st of January. Also, there is some, I think, cybersecurity IoT law in California that's, how to say, require privacy and security by design by the manufacturer. There is a lots of, how to say, possibility to penalty regarding the bad code. And it is really, how to say, very hard from a monetary point of view. Up to now, there was almost no penalty. I mean, everyone can make bug, but currently for a software bug, sometimes you need to pay awards. The company that you work for needs to pay the awards.
Well, so it's interesting about the penalties, right? I think Facebook was hit with a penalty by $5 billion. It's a drop in the bucket. It might have cost them a little bit of money on their stock, but they've recouped it all. And so penalties, I think, are a deterrent. They are for most of us, and that's why we don't park in that one spot that we know that the parking attendant always goes. But I don't think it's enough. I think definitely we need to do more. And that's why, because most of these companies are smart enough to figure out how to get you to look at their device all day long, or look at their app, or every time something pops up, to look at that. They're also smart enough to evade taxes from most countries in the world and pay the least amount possible. And they're also going to be smart enough to get around GDPR and the California Privacy Act and all the things that come out. Because that's just, it starts with us. We're the ones that have to force them to make sure that this is what we want. We want you guys to do better. And obviously, Google's thing is not "don't be evil" anymore. It's more like let's figure out how many markets we can get into.
Maybe one of our colleague jokes in the beginning when starting dealing with open source 10 years ago, I need a war in my team. And prior few years, I need a second war for the privacy.
Closing words from the rest of you? Okay, so I think now everybody in the audience can write better code, or at least not worse. And see you at the next talk. Thank you. A big applause.
Thanks, guys.